You know, this is an era of spectacular progress, particularly in bringing the good things of life to more and more people.
And from their talks was forged a map for the path to freedom, a compact for the future, A map for the
She'll be
path
in
to
bed for
freedom.
5 minutes and without fail.
Me too.
Like
Yes.
laying down.
I know exactly.
Doesn't matter how late it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter when she's gone pee. You're like, I have to go pee. And get up and
We're the same. Like, just maybe
the same person.
You might have to
I think it's
adjust
because if you live in
your
Oregon,
perception.
you live in Oregon for more than a year, and it
No.
affects you in good and bad ways.
There is. I talked to many people who do the same thing as
My
me.
goodness. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and get started. Sherri and Chet Yoder. Hi.
Hi.
Hey,
I'm so excited you guys are here. This has been a long anticipated ramp up, and I'm really glad. You guys are very busy people.
Are
And
we?
yes, you're very busy, and this is the first 3-person Wise Life Blueprint podcast,
Wow.
which is a little bit next level.
That's great.
We've added some breakthrough, added some extra love. So I'm really excited to have you guys. We're going to talk about health today. As you guys, I was thinking about this morning, actually on the throne. I was having my morning throne session, and
That's healthy.
It just came to me. I was
Yeah.
basically dead asleep, and it came to me that these guys are health Jedis.
oh my goodness.
That's the
That's
perfect
intimidating.
word. I was wondering, like, how am I going to introduce Sherri
my
and Chet?
goodness.
You guys are literal pioneers of like health culture, and it affects all you do. Your children are the most beautiful, healthy entities I've ever seen in my life.
Wow, thank you.
They are. They really, really are.
They're the most beautiful, they're the most healthy people I've ever seen in my life.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's pictures on social media. We'll go into that later. But you guys have just really done a phenomenal job at being countercultural, not bitter or like weird about it, or even like religious about overly
We had
religious.
our moments.
Yeah, I mean, there's a journey.
We've come a long way.
There's a journey. So maybe I'm
For anyone
seeing.
tuning in who knows us from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you guys have 4 kids. Sherri, you've been on talking about prophetic dreams and visions and all that good stuff. The reality is that the body is so connected to the soul and spirit that it's ridiculous.
No
And
separation.
There's no separation. We separate it in our Greek mindset and kind of just think, especially as charismatic Christians or as spiritual people, we really compartmentalize. And I think there's a lot going on right now in developing an awareness of how much the body actually affects our triune nature and being. So you guys have really just done a phenomenal job at that. Bethany and I are learning from you guys all the time. You are a doctor of physical therapy, Mr. Chet, and you are probably the greatest plant-based cook I've ever met in my life.
Aw.
A doctor of cooking.
A doctor of cooking.
PhD in plants.
Yes. Yes. Everything along those lines. Everything. So there's so much, but I want to hear from you guys just brief. What was your journey into health? Why did you start caring? Because a lot of people, the reality is they just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Why did it start to matter to you
You
guys?
should start with high school.
Yeah. For me, it was like since I was young, and I always liked. I think like the first remembrance I have is just wrestling around with other guys and like feeling like I wanted to win because I have a little bit of competition in me.
Just
And so
a little bit. As you can see by the
I
size of
think-
those biceps.
I think that was the first recollection I have. But then all through high school, I just loved the body. I loved anatomy class.
Yeah.
I loved learning about the body in any way, in any sorts of classes at school, and that was something that kind of generated into physical therapy in college. But I just, after
Played football.
wanting to win, it was sports. It turned into sports, and then
Okay.
being being better, winning,
Okay.
what would help get me the edge, what sort of workout would help.
That's awesome.
What sort of nutrition or eating would help. So
That's awesome. How about for you, Sherri?
I feel like I have a couple times where health was a big deal for me. I was definitely always the chubby kid. Always. Chubby elementary, chubby junior high, fairly chubby high school. Definitely went through a period of my life where I remember taking diet pills when I was 14 and a half,
Wow.
maybe 14, maybe 13 and a half,
Yeah.
probably. Just feeling like I wasn't, because I wasn't skinny or whatever in school, there was a small period of time where I felt like I needed to do something, and I'm really thankful that didn't last long. I don't know that I was really super conscious of health until my dad just about died from cancer, and we'd actually even had some like fairly significant goodbye conversations with him. I was 16, and then he made a radical choice to forego chemotherapy, and he started a seriously radical holistic nutrition change. We made basically a hardcore switch to vegetarianism, almost veganism, and he started doing some really interesting techniques, lots of enemas, lots of things to clean his bowels out, and he was radically healed of cancer from an
Wow.
inoperable tumor that
Wow.
actually disappeared. I mean, by the grace of God,
Wow.
power of healing, through Jesus and through plants, he was completely healed. So that was my wake
That
up
marked
call.
you. Yep.
And from then on, we got married, and I definitely didn't feel like what I was doing was super healthy. But if I look back now, like it was significantly different than what a lot of our college friends were doing, and people noticed at that point that we were doing something different. And I think I didn't put as much stock into it as I do now, but that was a marking change in my life. And then the second shift that happened for me was after I had my second daughter. I did sort of a bodybuilding fitness model competition just as a marker of goals in my life.
Yeah.
And to get really lean for that, I did the typical bodybuilding diet. And the day after the competition, I woke up and I told Chet, I'll never eat that again. And I just knew that I knew that my body could not sustain itself on, the typical egg white, chicken,
Right.
broccoli, high protein diet. So I made a
Right.
significant overnight near launch into complete, whether you want to call it veganism, plant-based.
Okay.
And just went through a huge cleansing, healing time. And Chet kind of jumped on board with that a little while later. That would be one of our more radical religious periods of time with health.
Yeah. There's definitely moments where you need, like, you have to get radical, because everything out there is radically unhealthy. And I think our nature is, I know for me, I need, if I want to make a shift, I can't just go halfway. I can't just be doing a little bit of sugar every day, a little bit of this, a little, it's got to be, you got to kind of cold turkey a lot of stuff, at least to get you over the hump
Totally.
of like your body adjusting and craving all of that stuff.
Totally.
So there's a lot there, but Chet, you've written a book called Taking Your Health into Your Own Hands. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but that principle means so much to me because I think so much of our mindset and culture is we pay doctors to have our health in their hands. And the truth is they're not really educated. A lot of doctors today aren't really educated to actually create wellness and preventative like health. They're more trained to diagnose problems and treat radical problems. Like in America, my opinion is that our medical system is incredible for like surgery and trauma and crazy stuff happening. But in terms of like disease prevention and the optimal, like what I am interested in is how do I function in Curtis's most optimal, energized, awake, mentally sharp state. Like how do I get there? So on that same line, I want to talk about like top 10, 15, I don't care how many we go into, top 10 things we can do to actually, or people can do to improve their health as a whole.
Yeah.
Like if they were just to go out this week, and obviously it's a journey. Like it can't just be, change 10 things this week and then you'll be healthy. It's very much like years and a process. I think each person could have an entire team of physicians, researchers, just studying that one person to optimize their health easily. And there would still be tons of mystery surrounding it.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes me mad that it's that customized.
Yeah.
But the human body is so complicated.
Yeah.
There's so much to it.
Intricate, yeah.
It's so intricate. It's a miracle that it even exists, that it even functions.
Yeah.
So let's go into that. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts about this current medical system and taking our health into our own hands? Why does that matter?
Yeah, it's huge because, like you said, if I have any sort of a traumatic accident, I want to be in the United States of America. But
Heck yeah.
But otherwise, there's many older practices, ancient practices that are bring a lot of health that we've forgotten about. So that's a big reason. But yeah, we really enjoy cultivating a lot of responsibility for our health and trying to teach others to cultivate their own responsibility for their health, because we are responsible. God asks us to be responsible for our temple.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
that's how.
And there's so much power that we have as the individual. I think that that's part of the problem in the American mindset of like I wake up every day and I'm just kind of living my normal. I'm eating what I've always eaten, and it's like I think there is kind of a lack of ownership, but it's not necessarily because people are bad. It's just because I think a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
we're used to being inflamed. We're used to being
Foggy.
beat down. And so when you've eaten cereal your whole life and grew up on sugar like I did, it's like you develop a normal.
Yeah.
Of like, you're just functioning and getting by, and you think that mental fog, that inflammation in your body, the pain in your joints, even as a kid, that's relatively normal, and it's not. The truth is it's not.
No.
So
I love the fact that God's given us a choice too. We have complete free will in what we choose to do with our health. I mean, God can bless us in many different ways, but He gives us choice.
it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
So there's just a movement going on right now. Like in my conversation with Kate, we talked about, this is kind of funny and will be an inside joke and probably won't make sense to a lot of people, but we talked about apostles. What is an apostle? And I have thought for years that being like eating healthy and choosing to take care of my body is very apostolic in nature, because an apostle shapes and reforms culture. An apostle goes against the status quo in culture. And I'm an apostolic eater.
That's so good.
You know what I'm saying?
I would love for you to define that a little bit.
I'm an apostolic eater. Like apostles would show up into cities and they would bring new culture into that city, into that place, make it feel like home for the emperor, you know? So anyway, there's a lot there, but top 10 things.
Yeah.
Give
Something
me,
really fast?
Give me a couple things.
Okay.
Yes.
Go.
I mean, if I go first, like it has to do with thoughts first. So we can talk about food and water and vegetables, but I mean, it has to do with our thoughts first.
Okay.
I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was like cultivating joy. Would be like my number one would be cultivating joy. Like, so the verse in Proverbs that's like the joyful heart does good like a medicine.
Yes.
It has to start there. It has to start internal, because we can stress about healthy eating. That's one of the things, in recent years, we can obsess about healthy eating, and we've been there before. And if we stress,
it can almost become fear-based,
Totally.
right?
Absolutely.
And that's
can do
almost
more
worse,
harm.
the stress, yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. So we feel like we've been to both extreme, like we've been to both sides, and we've found that, okay, whatever we're doing, we need to have joy, we need to choose joy, we need to cultivate joy, we need to cultivate those thoughts. Did you have any?
I would love to expand on that. Maybe should we do top 10 first, or kind of go along the way?
Expand on a little. Speak right into the microphone.
Right.
Bring it closer to you.
Just a thought that comes into my mind is even you could eat the most macro articulated diet that gets you so lean, right at your perfect numbers. You have aesthetically pleasing body, totally lean, every perfect muscle showing that's supposed to be. I've not experienced that many times in my life. And not to condone or give value to obesity, because that's a crisis in America right now. But on the other side, you could be holding on to an extra 10 pounds that just don't seem to come off, especially in this whole women's camp of women striving for weight loss. Not to condone obesity, but I would say that there's also the flip side of holding on to a few extra pounds, but having perfect digestion, which is almost unheard of in sort of that typical bodybuilder world, unless you're eating enough fiber. I see so many digestive issues where people aren't experiencing regular bowel movements, which is huge for your health and your well-being. So I feel like there's like these two extremes. You could get to this aesthetically pleasing body, which everyone thinks you're healthy, but have terrible
and that's
digestion.
What's culturally acceptable and so celebrated.
Totally, and not be sleeping. And then maybe have your nerves just be, or you could be over here, you're holding on a few, it kind of bugs you, but you sleep perfect at night, you have great digestion, and you have peace. So I just feel like more and more, like Chet said, we've been to both sides. There's needs to be more space for wellness of mind, sleep, stress management, and celebrating like health. True health is when your functions like are working properly. So that's just something I would.
You can look
tag
beautiful on the outside and be totally jacked on the inside.
Yeah, completely.
And suffering in your mind and exhausted all the time and energy peaks and crashes.
Totally.
It's very kind of deceiving because you got obesity on one side and it's like, well, you're probably not doing so good. And then on the other side, it's like bodybuilders are some of the most unhealthy people there is. They completely starve themselves and dehydrate themselves, and it's just not natural. So anyway,
there are a few people out there making a difference in sort of the plant-based world who are doing it differently. They're maintaining it more year-round because they're eating like plant-based diet. They're able to get a ton of nutrients in without eating a ton of calories. So there are a few people out there shifting that, which is really cool. But overall, I just think I just think we need to remember that at the end of the day, you could have somebody who's a little softer but has maintained such health in their life, especially through peace of mind, that the stress component isn't there.
That's so huge. Because let's break that down a little bit, because cortisol is the stress hormone. How much do you know about that?
I'm not an expert, but it's more on the chronic level is what is really toxic for the body and leads to so many degenerative changes. And so we have our tiger chasing us in the woods and we have the adrenaline release, but then on the chronic level, if we have stress that goes on and goes on and goes on and never calms down, and then that cortisol on the chronic or long-term effect it doesn't stop, and then that's where the danger is. Because our bodies are meant to have an adrenaline release and then be able to recover from that, and that's not all that unhealthy as long as it doesn't happen every hour. So I mean that in fact is the way God set it up. That we are supposed to be able to perform whether it's go for a run or I especially love workouts for stress release. So that's not a bad thing. But then to be holding on to some of those chronic stressors, especially in our mind, that don't go away, that we can't release, then those are dangerous.
Yeah, and I am one of those people that my generation where I have a marked difference. My life before an iPhone or internet that wasn't dial-up. So a huge part of my life was before. I only got an iPhone 5 years ago, or my first cell phone. So before and after, and I know the exact marked difference for me in how I see myself in body confidence. I never had social media before I had an iPhone, and it is interesting when you're talking about stressors, that whether it's comparison, the body culture that we're seeing on Instagram, that's like there is an underlying chronic stress for a lot of people who are always feeling like they're not measuring up or they're missing the mark. Instead of just, I don't know, way back when our Oxygen magazine would show up once a month and we'd have some motivation for our workouts for the week.
Right.
And we'd be okay, it'd go on the shelf. But now it's
Right.
in front every day, all the time.
Right.
And so it's really hard to put an aesthetically pleasing body into like a little box over here and be like, okay, but where are we in health with our stressors? How are we dealing with daily life? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's right on target. I know for me, like, my journey started when my health journey started when I hit rock bottom in anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm.
I had about 5 years of what ramped up to panic attacks, about 2 years of panic attacks, and just hopelessness. I mean, can't get away from it, hated the way I felt, didn't want to feel this way. The more I hated it, the worse it got, because you just step into that internal cycle. So it's one of the things I'm actually really passionate about now, is helping people through those internal cycles and labyrinths of cortisol and stress and self-disappointment and anxiety, depression. There's need a whole nother 5 podcasts just to break that apart. But when I was in the middle of that, I was like, I will do anything I possibly can. I will do anything in my power to change this. And so I saw a naturopath, a woman that did a lot of work with people at Bethel, did a lot of work with Benny Johnson, they've so pioneered a lot of health culture, even in the church. And broader than that. But I started shifting things, cut out sugar, cut out caffeine, cut out gluten, a lot of these things that we know. I mean, the studies are so secure that we know that they cause inflammation, and an inflamed brain, an inflamed system will not cause peace. It will not bring change, will not bring wholeness. So I started shifting things in my diet and saw a little bit of change, but it was this 3-pronged thing that I felt really for me, that it was radically taking a stand against thoughts that were tearing me apart.
There you go.
So 2 Corinthians 10:4, take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty in God for pulling down of strongholds and taking thoughts captive. Binding those things, choosing, filtering, it takes work. Oh my gosh, it's work. So that, but it was also changing my diet, but it was also exercise.
Totally.
I'm sure this is on your list. I started doing more like intensity-based kind of some CrossFit stuff just on my own and going for it. And I've heard many doctors and many people who are way more studied in this than me say exercise is actually like the silver bullet to your health. It will literally rewire your brain. So I would suggest, and again, I want to hear your thoughts on this, but just renewing your mind isn't enough. I would suggest that you need a dietary aspect to wholeness. You also need a physical. We were not made to be sedentary beings. And there's something about movement and exercise that is uncomfortable, but your body's stress response to the stress of exercise literally rewires your brain.
Absolutely.
It is it has such an analgesic effect. It's pain relieving. It is all these different things. So maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're doing a top 10 list, I would agree with you. My first couple would be joy and cultivating thankfulness and our thoughts. But then, coming down from there, exercise is high and is huge, because I think it's happened in my life, and I know with Sherri's too, that how we eat is tied into our exercise level. And if I'm sedentary, I sometimes don't make as good of a choice as if I am active and working out. I absolutely feel that it's a temporary uncomfortableness when we work out, but the benefits are huge because it doesn't leave our body in a chronic state of being stressed. It's a good stress. It's a challenge. God made us for challenges, and then there's rest. You know,
Yeah.
God made those great cycles where our bodies can be renewed.
Yeah. That's really, really good.
So I would go ahead.
Let's talk a little bit about the type of exercise as well, because I think that really matters.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? What have you found effective? It differs for every single person. It's going to be different, so there isn't a one size fits all. But if you were to give advice to a broad group of people, or maybe a couple different categories, if they're not exercising, again, why would you say that's important, and what could they do easily?
Yeah. So we like to do a few different things, but if I can be kind of general, being outside is huge. Like, and this, we can talk about this more later too, but seeing the sun, having the sun see you and hit your skin is huge. You know, we can go overboard
Vitamin
with that.
D, yeah.
But being outside is huge. So I like to get some of my workouts outside. So whether it involves running or walking or doing stretching outside, or my workouts, sometimes my squat racks outside. So I love to be outside. I love to get fresh air, and that totally renews me.
Yeah. So it's not just a sweaty gym membership.
Yeah, and if that's
You know,
what you have, that's
then
great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Not
But you're not
criticizing
confined
anybody.
to that. Like a lot of
No.
people
Yeah.
think to
Supplemental.
get healthy, I gotta go to the gym.
Yeah.
I need to pay $100 a month for a gym membership,
Yeah,
and that's just not the case at all.
true.
You know, you have a whole outside world and reality that is available. But one thing I would add is, like, a lot of people don't have the internal motivation, which is fine, to go out and do body weight exercises or go on a walk on their own. We need to team up with people.
Yeah.
When I
community.
am lacking motivation, and I know it, when I'm lacking motivation to read the Bible, even when I'm lacking, let's say even in exercise, because I've done that before, I will tether myself to someone who I know is
Yeah.
better at it than me. And I'll put it in my calendar,
Yeah,
and then that will force me to do something that I value that I might not do when it comes right up to the moment.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge key. Is if you want to do something and you know you're going to try to copy your way out, bind yourself to someone who's better at it than you.
yeah. That's huge.
I think that's been a huge key for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, if you're talking about types of exercise, and we've kind of done a number of things too. I've done endurance events and half marathons and cycling, and I just feel like I feel best, and sure, you can share too, but I feel best when I get really, like you said, really intense for a short period of time.
Yep.
So when I do HIIT workouts, or I like to lift heavy weights sometimes. I don't do it every day, but I like to lift heavy weights that make me struggle.
Yeah.
I like to incorporate that in my workout. I feel like as we age, I know I'm not old, but I'm 38. As we age, studies show we lose muscle mass. So I like to incorporate something of that into my workouts on a very regular basis, at least 3 times a week, that challenges me. Chin-ups, push-ups, all those sort of things, squatting with weights. So I like to do weight workouts.
Yeah.
That are high intensity.
Yep,
And
I
I don't
resonate with that.
I don't have to be there for an hour and a half.
Exactly.
It's usually
we're
20
super
minutes.
busy. So sometimes it's 20
25.
minutes. Sometimes
That
it's
is
30 minutes.
so good.
But I try not to,
So many people think you got to hit the gym for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
I used to. I
I'm
love the
like-
social connection. I just talked for an hour and worked out for half an hour. And I was like, hey, I'm not at all efficient at the gym. I like people too much. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's true, but you don't need that much time.
No, that's ridiculous.
My philosophy is I will just grind for 20 minutes. I'll warm up for 10 so I don't hurt myself.
Absolutely.
But then I will grind. I will
Yeah.
be breathing. I will be sweating.
Yeah.
I will push myself pretty darn hard to the point where I'm like, you need, I think part of when exercise becomes effective is when your body is pushed past its status quo and you actually start, it's like you got to trick your body into thinking you're actually running from a tiger.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, especially for men. Like
Okay.
I've seen that turn into.
Okay.
I've seen that because none of this resonates with me. But I have
Okay.
seen those types of workouts.
Tell me about that.
Well, I've seen them lend to Chet's mental clarity later, or his tenacity and perseverance to lead our family through a tough day. You know, that
Right.
really translates into his patience later. If I want a husband that's understanding and patient and able to help us, then I know to send him out the door to his workout first thing. So it's that effective, and that it translates that clearly.
That's awesome.
So definitely can attest to that. It's
Yeah.
not the same for me and the women's there's many women out there that do need that intensity
Mm-hmm.
as well. We have all different types of people, but the word intense or grind in a workout for me brings me a whole lot of stress and fear.
Really?
And I will just shut down and not do it if that's involved.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's great.
Yeah, and I just to bring the balance, like, yeah, I mean, I'm talking about that, 3-4 times a week, but I also walk or run, and then do a lot of stretching too, where
Yeah.
it
Active
could just be
stretching.
more mild stretching or recovery, because there's always that balance
Yep.
in what the Lord created. So
Yep.
I definitely do that as well. And
Yeah.
do you want to talk about what you enjoy?
Yeah, like my body's different now. 4 kids later, not 2 of those which we adopted, but went through just a lot of stress, emotional stress with adoptions. And so just recovery looked different with each kid.
Yeah.
But years later, I'm turning 39 next month. And for me, one of the biggest things I've found in this last 5 years is rebounding. It's been the most beneficial for my body. Rebounding is basically a mini trampoline, but there's really high-end ones. I have a really nice one that allows you to bounce very quickly, so you can be really engaged with your muscles. It's NASA tested, and NASA has put out huge recommendations. This is how they get their astronauts back into what would be the technical word, Chet, just engaging their muscles, firing after being in space for so long, is through rebounding.
Wow.
And one of the biggest reasons that rebounding is so essential is our lymph system in our body has to pump. It doesn't pump itself. So going for a brisk walk or a run, those are good things to get your lymph going. Maybe jump squats, whatever works for you. But for me, I've found the best thing for my joints and my body is rebounding. And there's little, you can look on NASA has this whole article on it, but they've done, I think 10 minutes of rebounding is equivalent of like 20 to 30 minutes of running in terms of the lymphatic pumping in the body, the circulation, the cardiovascular and respiratory benefits.
Wow.
So rebounding for me, I could go for a power walk in summer when it's hot and I might not sleep all night. If it's like towards the end of the day, I might not sleep all night because my legs are aching. They're taking on fluid. They're
Right,
inflamed.
right.
But if I rebound, I can literally keep pain away. Just the pain I have maybe from standing in the kitchen too long or being on my feet.
That's amazing.
So that's been a game changer for me. It's
Yeah.
super toning because every time, like the force of gravity is working every time you're in the air.
Right.
So it can actually really help tighten your fascia, reduce cellulite. There's like tons of benefits. Just Google rebounding. That combined
that,
with body
yeah.
exercises and light weight workouts for me are my jam. So Pilates.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I haven't really heard too much about that, but
Yeah, it's
Bethany
amazing.
I think Bethany was telling me that she was looking into it, I think. from
Yeah, it's
talking to you.
incredible. Yeah.
I love that. So exercise,
Yeah.
incredibly important. What's
Yeah.
next?
I have one to tag on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
With exercise, but I don't think people realize how beneficial deep breathing is. You can actually burn fat just from deep breathing.
Wow.
Like to actually take a breath to notice in the day, hey, am I breathing with my chest? Am I breathing shallow? So just taking 10 diaphragmatic breaths in a day, getting all of the oxygen into the body, releasing all of the waste with that exhale. So if you're exercising and not being mindful of your breathing, then you might want to stop for a minute, get mindful of your breathing, and then bring back the exercise. So
Yeah, because it really
Breathing
brings
is-
awareness.
yeah.
So whether we're doing an intense workout where we are blocking out all the noises, not focused on our social endeavors or our phone, and just like you said, 100% focused on your workout. You're super intense, but you're very aware of your body. Like you're very in tune because you're focused. Or if you're deep breathing, you're also very in tune with your body. So that awareness,
it's a good gauge.
it brings our workouts our exercise brings awareness to how our bodies are feeling and what our body needs, and then that coincides into our eating. So like when you're working out and you're very aware of your body, then you're like, okay, now I'm going to feed my body this. We tend to make better food choices when
Yeah.
And
we're
eat
aware.
slower when you're aware too,
Yeah.
which is huge.
There is a fundamental lack of self-awareness of our body, because of what we were talking about earlier, we're just all used to being inflamed. We're all used to being like having terrible like gut problems going on.
Yeah.
Like we're all used to having foggy brains and being tired all the time and crashing in the afternoon, which is normal, but it's not.
Pooping rocks. I'm sorry, but like at some point we need to talk about poop.
Because it matters.
Your health, you can find your health in the toilet bowl, pretty quickly.
That's very true. I actually just heard of like the gut biome is, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's there's so much going on there in the gut, in the biome of the gut. It's your second brain.
Yeah.
It affects your mood in every way you can imagine. And there's just a study done where they took the feces of one mouse, of an anxious mouse. I know. I don't know how they made the mouse
Poor
anxious.
little anxious mouse.
I know, but the mouse was very anxious, and they took the feces of the anxious mouse.
no.
And this is getting worse. And they put it into the digestive system of a non-anxious mouse.
Oh my goodness.
And the non-anxious mouse became just as anxious.
Seriously.
Yes, because
So why weren't there humans in this trial? I'm sorry.
That's what I'm wondering.
Surely they could have encapsulated it.
So there's a whole movement going on right now of getting your poop sequenced. Have you heard of this?
Well,
I think we've been doing it,
looking at-
just not aware that we were.
Yeah, we're
Getting
very
your
aware of it, but
feces
Yeah.
tested for what's
okay.
going on in
well,
there.
we've never done that.
Because you can. So I think it's called biome.
Okay.
It starts with the V. I couldn't spell it for
I
you.
can close my mouth now. Wow.
Yep, and it's a whole thing where you send your poop off,
Yeah.
and they sequence it for you and tell you how, like, what's going on in there. I wish I had more detail, but we're getting very off topic.
I don't know.
It's
That's-
all right.
I think that's pretty on topic.
It's all right.
Which would be leading to the next thing, which would be on my top 10, which is fiber. Like, we could simplify this, right?
All right, yeah, let's do it.
So
Okay.
fiber, plants,
Yep.
just eating way more fiber than most people. Maybe some people are eating 20 grams of fiber a day. I have no idea.
So
but
why is fiber important for the body?
So if you want that colon to be cleaned out, if you want it to repel and pick up the waste and the toxins as it comes through the whole system, then you need something to grab onto that. So you need fiber. And not Metamucil. Sorry, but but I know
Yeah.
we laugh.
What even is
we laugh,
Metamucil?
but people are still
that
on
is
this
their fiber intake.
because they're not having bowel movements, and you go too long without bowel movements that are normal, and you have that much trapped toxin in your
Yeah.
body.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be detrimental.
Wow. But really, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Why? Because there's fiber. Maybe you eat two. Chew them carefully. Make sure you're digesting them well. Eat celery. Just fiber. I mean, I think it'd be cool to get your poop tested and have some, maybe some ideas, maybe supplementation. But at the end of the day, it should be long, should kind of be soft, not
Do you have a
like super
picture?
oily. There's a lot. There are pictures online, so you can tell a lot about your health just by checking out your poop.
That's
and
awesome.
nothing, when you talk about fiber, I think what you're trying to say, nothing man-made, no Metamucil, no processed stuff. We're talking about vegetables
Flax,
and fruit.
vegetables,
Real
fruits,
fiber.
Yeah.
copious amounts of greens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hashtag copious.
Copious.
That keyword.
Keyword is a couple
copious
pounds.
amounts
It's
of
not that hard
greens.
to get a lot of greens.
I've been known with, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, just to walk around with bags of kale and just eat raw kale. And people make fun of me.
Hardcore.
And people have tried to follow me, but many have
Falling off the way.
They have fallen off the.
The
my friend Elliot has a great story of being, BSSM with me, and he's just looking at me eating, just handfuls of kale, raw kale, no dressing. Who needs dressing when you can just eat the raw thing, and just get it in you? But part of what I'm kind of being funny, but one thing that blows my mind is how what is not normal and can sound gross, like eating celery or eating kale, actually becomes your new normal.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
There is so much, I think, that we're talking about right now, and in the arena of fitness, of working out, of diet, nutrition, where it can feel so foreign.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that's so encouraging to me about the human body is our ability to adapt. And like now, because I've improved my diet so much, if I don't eat greens in a day, I feel like I'm gonna die.
Totally.
Yeah,
My
feel-
body craves them. Yeah.
Like if I don't work out in a week, I'm like something's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a learned when you there's a momentum. There's some sort of momentum that happens. I'm sure there's all sorts of science,
Yeah.
that would back that up. But in any area, I think if you do something consistently for 3 weeks, physiology will change. Your mental ability to grab hold of it will change, and you will crave it. It is the most encouraging thing ever.
Yeah,
You just have to suffer for 3 weeks.
We have a testimony towards that. We went on a trip once, and I think 3 days into the trip, something was happening to me. I was like, what is wrong with me? I feel like I'm failing, like I'm crashing. I can't, this is supposed to be fun, and I can't keep up. We realized back home I'd been juicing every day, before we had left. And
Wow.
here we were in a hotel, first few days of the trip, we were eating a salad or whatever for lunch, but I hadn't been able to find juice. And we just found the next juice bar. I kind of put my food on hold for the rest of the day and just had a couple of green juices. And within the hour, I was like, I could feel when it hit my mouth, like my body was finally like, thank you, so
Yeah, it's crazy.
Your body will crave greens and not that eating, just so people don't think we exist on raw vegetables, because clearly we don't.
Yeah.
And not that chewing on raw greens is bad, it's great, but just to remember, because sometimes this isn't brought into the equation, that you need some fats to assimilate those nutrients in the greens.
Oh, heck yeah.
So not
Okay.
soybean oil dressing,
Bless
but
God. Yeah.
a little hemp seed or chia seed in your smoothie with
Avocados.
spinach, little avocado, maybe the raw kale, but then you're also having a handful of almonds on the side.
That's super interesting.
Cashews.
because you do need to assimilate them together
You need fat
at some point
to
in the day.
assimilate
It
nutrients.
doesn't have to be in the instant. Yeah, it's
Okay.
for those greens.
But
What's the
But if-
mechanism for that? Do you know? Why is it why do you need fat
It's just
to
this.
assimilate?
It's some of the
nutrients?
vitamins that you're trying to assimilate from inside of the greens are fat soluble. So it doesn't look like taking a cup of oil on your salad. It looks like a teaspoon of chia seeds in your smoothie. It looks like a couple almonds on the side or some avocado with your kale. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's just something, and it does help assimilate.
Yep.
Yeah, and just for just pure and simple sustainability. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to be you're not going to be thriving if you don't have some fats to give you long-term energy, because you just have, it's such a healthy way of higher caloric level of nutrients that can sustain you for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
That's good.
But I was going to say, I mean, like, just to agree with everything you're saying here, if you go back biblically to Genesis 1 verse, I think 29, and you look at what God gave us to eat, that's everything we're talking about here.
Yeah, he
the
lays it
plants and
out,
every
yeah.
seed-bearing fruit. And so, I mean, if we think, if you think like what's permissible and what's optimal, that's I get a kick about talking about that a lot. But like, if you think of what God gave us as optimal in the beginning,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. And you look at Daniel's life and in the
Yeah.
Old Testament and
Yeah.
what he resolved to do,
Yeah.
and clarity of mind was like pretty huge for them, because if you don't interpret the dream and your head's chopped off, you need to be like pretty close to Holy Spirit, but also clarity of mind would be huge. And I can't help but think that might have been a reason that they resolved to eat what they chose, or to choose what
Right.
they,
And their
what they
skin
ate.
glowed. So even though raw and fruits and vegetables will give you that incredible look in your skin, raw, the seed-bearing plants, that includes avocado, that includes durian, that includes a lot of plants that do contain higher amounts of fat. So God has this perfect combination in plants.
Wow.
Like some are super high in fat, some
Wow.
aren't, but they're seed-bearing and they provide everything we need. So, I'm thankful that there's supplements out there and things that we can help ourselves with if we need it, but God really did stack us with a great lineup of foods.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah, and then
So true.
then going on down the line, some of what God gave the Israelites to eat. It wasn't just all plants, because if
Fermented
you're going to survive
foods,
in the desert, there's going to be other things that you're going to need to have. So, and again, I don't want everyone to get the idea that we don't ever have something that's not a plant.
Indulge,
But we're pretty diverse, but God gave the Israelites other optimal things, and that's where a lot of that, when you talk about the gut biome, a lot of the things that God introduced to them that were fermented and the
so
kefirs,
much probiotics,
getting those good probiotics for the gut. A lot of that started way back in the Old Testament with what God introduced to them.
Wow.
So, and then some of the ideas that just the different animals that were okay to eat, and then some that were not as optimal. And then in the New Testament with Peter, God said, okay, everything is permissible. Like God said, no
Right.
rules.
Right.
Everything is permissible. The story of the net and the alligators
Sheep coming down and the
Yeah.
whole thing.
But God did have certain things that were optimal. Even way back when in the Garden of Eden, Daniel chose things that were optimal. The Israelites had things that were optimal that separated them from a lot of the other people groups around them. So they made certain choices that were optimal for them.
Yeah.
But then God said, okay, everything is permissible, no rules. But you still have choice.
you have choice, yeah.
And our
Totally.
bodies haven't really changed, so we should still have choice. And
Totally.
God told us what was optimal a long time
Didn't
ago.
he also say like it's better to put a knife to your throat than to be a glutton? Be a glutton.
Oh my
I feel like
gosh, yeah.
there's a proverb
Oh
somewhere
yeah, there
that
is. Yeah.
I try to ignore that one sometimes.
seriously though. So he's like, here's optimal, here's permissible, and here's gluttony. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So I
Yep,
feel like
little
we could,
conviction there.
yeah, we could chill out a whole bunch with this radical health obsession if we just ate smaller portions, did all these other things we're talking about, movement, well-being. I mean, water is another big one, but yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. What else you got?
Sherri just said it. Wow, what a segue. Water. Like
Yeah.
we
Oh,
had a
gosh.
situation with our daughter.
Let's just go ahead and
Yeah, I've been
Hydrate. We had a situation with our daughter a few years ago where
She's
actually she had a
pretty little.
skin disorder, and we saw a shift in her just from changing the water we drank from.
within days. We saw her
yeah.
body was covered in a rash. It was horrific.
Yeah, and when we went to a little more alkalinity, like shifting our water to be more alkaline and adding
rich.
some minerals in, boom, it was huge.
wow.
Yeah, so that opened our eyes. We've never looked back. Obviously, we could throw out there that if people are looking for a water filter, I think all the cool hipsters are getting Berkeys now.
Yep. Just
so
like us.
a Berkey is a
Just
great
like
one.
you.
The only thing Berkey is missing that I would add is some mineral rocks, which
Yeah.
we have in our Nikon. So there's different ones out
Okay.
there, but you could just add some of those minerals. There's mineral essence. There's different mineral concoctions you can buy out there just to make sure you're getting that. But
Yeah.
water, it's huge.
Okay, so when the brain is dehydrated, you are tired and slow.
Stress, chronic. Yeah, it's
There's so much that goes on there. Like when I start feeling tired, this is another thing that since I have become interested in health at 7 years ago, started drinking a lot of water every day, and now I can't not do that.
Yeah.
So if it's hard for an individual to drink water, just do it,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
your body will readjust.
Yeah.
Because we adapt so profoundly to jacked up stuff. That's the thing that blows me away about
It
the
is
human
amazing,
body,
yeah.
and that's why people think they're healthy.
They're okay.
Is because it's like, I'm not thirsty, so I just don't drink water. I'm like,
no.
I don't know if that's okay. You know what I mean? Not that you drown yourself
Yeah.
in so much water that you're literally just washing everything out of your body and not assimilating nutrients, but there is, I think, something that we can adapt to there. So why would you say drinking water is important?
Middle. Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna.
It all
Have
comes
you
back
said that
to
before in
poop.
this podcast?
Sorry, but seriously, I'm tired of people whining they're constipated and not drinking water. Water and chia seeds instead of potato chips will take you far in the car when you're hungry and thirsty at the same time.
Water soaked with
Just keep chia seeds in your purse.
Yeah.
If you're super hungry,
Yeah.
you're wanting to reach for that bag of chips, tablespoon of chia seeds,
Wow, just the
water,
the dried
it's going to
chia
expand.
seeds.
Those
Yeah.
tablespoon of chia seeds is going to expand in your stomach to a pretty decent amount, you
Now,
know.
what is in chia seed? What-
Fiber, fat, vitamins,
Yep,
nutrients.
a lot of omegas.
A lot of omegas. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know the fats were there. One thing fascinating about chia seed that I found out is, you know how when soaked, it'll
It's
have that
gelatinous.
gelatinous
Yeah.
form. That actually will absorb and target toxins.
Yeah. It's
Which
like-
is fascinating, and so it's just this little detox bomb in your gut and
Yep.
all
Yeah.
through your digestive system.
that chia pet wasn't just a good concept.
Yes. So
Chia.
so water, you got to drink it because you're constipated.
Yeah.
And clarity
Clarity
of
of mind.
mind, and
Energy.
performance. I mean,
Energy.
there's studies that, you know, if you're even 20% dehydrated, your performance is going to drop by this much. I mean, so if we treat
Right.
our bodies, you know, if you treat yourself like an athlete, which
Right.
we all should,
Yeah.
if
Right.
you treat your body like a temple, then you don't want your performance, whether it's clarity of mind,
Yeah. Digestion.
or
so pre-meal
physical
drinking.
performance.
Yeah.
You don't want it to suffer.
There's so much.
The body's made up of water, so just keep replenishing. Yeah, I'm not really I'm not the person either to
And-
be like, you should add some drops of this so that you can like it. Just drink it because you're gonna die if you don't. You know,
Pretty good case there.
right?
And the fascia of the body. When we talk about pain, I mean, we could talk for hours about pain too. But the fascia, the connective tissue that makes us up and holds everything in place, that has to be hydrated to move well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for preventing pain,
Yeah.
hydration.
So hydration and rolling would be that's a winning combo for your fascia. Rolling out your
to prevent injury,
muscles, just
to combat pain.
flush toxins right out of the fascia, like flush toxins, the lymph.
Wow.
you
So
know.
rolling like a foam
Yeah.
roller that you roll
Yeah.
on the ground with.
Or if your
Well-
wife can massage you for an hour, that'll work too.
Bless
So
God.
Chet has a really good foam roller in our kitchen that we use regularly. Foam rolling, ladies, you all want a cellulite cream. It's not going to work. Water is going to flush cellulite. Something like
Wow.
rebounding, walking is going to
Preach.
flush cellulite, and rolling is going to flush cellulite. There's lots of
what you're
videos out
talking
there. If
about.
you don't know how to roll, just go on Amazon, get a roller, go on YouTube.
Wow.
What's her name? Lauren Roxburgh has a great book on it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Roll.
So rolling will the
Breaks up those pockets.
breaks up the pockets of
Toxin. Yep. Stagnicity, stagnant places within the fascia. I mean, it's the same reason a massage is great, but we all can't go for a massage every single
Right.
week.
Yep.
So
Yeah. So there's adhesions in the fascia.
That's super interesting. So why does your body store toxin in the fascia?
well,
How does that build up?
I wonder that we
Well,
didn't
and
used
not-
to when we
not
were
just-
sedentary.
I wouldn't say not just in the fascia, but in
Organs.
everywhere,
Yes.
in adipose tissue and fat tissue. I mean, everywhere. But yeah, immobility, sitting too long.
Wow.
And that there's adhesions start to form in the fascia. We don't get the right lymphatic flow and circulation.
We're not scaling
that would be a big.
walls.
That would be a big reason.
Yeah, we're not going down into
Okay.
riverbeds to get our water. We're not, doing things where we're actually like rubbing up against earth and using our bodies just in much more all-encompassing ways. We're so forward motion driven
Yeah.
now.
I mean, if you think about this position and over again, and my head starts to get forward here, and my head starts to get forward here, and this fascia is affected. And that's just
Totally.
part of my day, and then I go back to my computer screen.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's just a recipe for adhesions in
Wow.
fascia.
And I
Wow.
think a healthy person is also like, if your spine isn't flexible, I'd say that's a good marker that I feel like we were born with flexible spines to some degree. We need to work on expansion, a lot of us, so expanding, putting a roller on our back, expanding through the chest. I mean, Chet's book teaches all about that, but
Yeah, that's really good.
opening up, yeah,
Okay. So water, that is
water, rolling,
like one of the I think so easy. Water is relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
To get like some good quality water. Tap water.
No, just get a filter.
Just get a filter.
And
a
you're-
simple.
You can usually
Yeah.
stretch your filter out for more months than
Yep.
depending on what you're using.
Yep.
So
Yeah, something that takes you get your chlorine out and your fluoride out, and puts some minerals in. Yeah,
That's a huge hack.
Yep.
Next.
yeah.
What do you think?
Something we talk about a lot with people. Sorry, did you want to go?
No, you go, babe.
Toxin-free living. So we talk about, toxins inside and flushing out with water and all that, but just not putting toxins on ourselves. So whether we're using soap or lotions or perfumes or fragrances or all these things that we put on our skin's our largest organ. And so
like
much
a sponge.
Our skin
Even
is like
candles,
a sponge. It's very
respiratory,
absorbable.
everything.
Yeah. So
Candles freak me out. When I walk
Check
into
your air filter.
When I walk into a candle, first of all, you hold like a candle is burning and it smells. It gives me headaches.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, this smells so strong that it's not even enjoyable. And then when you hold your hand over it, it's black.
Yeah.
It's like you're literally releasing black.
People who burn candles a lot should check their air filters. It's a good indicator.
It just feels a little bit, I don't know, off to me. Mm-hmm. So, but your skin.
Yeah, because in this day and age, what we men and women have created is a lot of products that have chemical. We're in a chemical age for years now, but we've created all these products, even these health products that have toxic chemicals in them. So we're bathing in toxic chemicals. We put them in our baths. We use shampoo and lotions that have toxic chemicals. So that's I could talk for an hour on that, but there's that's a big factor in health.
Endocrine disruption,
in cancers and infertility, and in all sorts of neurotransmitter problems in the brain. I mean, the list goes on and on.
So
that's huge.
Talk about, because you guys are with Young Living and have had a ton of success with Young Living and are huge, are super knowledgeable with that company. And Bethany and I have been shifting more in that direction in terms of therapy. And there's a lot I don't know, but talk about oils as a replacement to a lot of those fragrances and candles and even the health benefits of oil. We're running out of time here, but I want to make sure I touch on that with you guys as well, because you know so much more than I do.
I would just say really quickly, back after we had shifted our diet, even for the first 5 to 6 years after we made a pretty tremendous shift, I was still experiencing in wintertime some pretty severe bronchitis issues, sinusitis, reoccurring coughing episodes that would last, where if you could, you'd maybe use NyQuil for a couple weeks until you could sleep well at night. So this was before we were introduced to oils, but after we had a diet change. So we were healthier for sure. But when we got that cold, when we got that bronchitis or that strep throat, we didn't really know what to do besides, we're eating healthy, but we're in pain, so let's take this Tylenol cold or let's take something like this. Anyway, after we were introduced to oils and our minds were blown when we were able to help our kids with their fever or their cough through oils instead of cough medicines and things like that. A few years later, I was able to look back and say to Chet, wow, that stuff that used to plague me, and I mean plague, for weeks I used to get it. That stuff ended after we started diffusing, regularly in our home, bringing those oils into our respiratory system, into the blood, into our blood system in our body. That's when all of those colds, do we still get it? Sure, for a couple of days. We can get a cold or a little quick 12-hour stomach flu. It happens, but not like it used to happen.
Not the,
there's just an overall testimony to our health improving for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and again, not to bring biblical things in all the time, but there's a couple references in the Bible for the leaves of trees being healing for the nations. And I know that has a spiritual reference too, but physically, God gave us plants not just for food, but also for healing.
Yeah.
And so there's the plants of so many different types of plants have different healing properties. So you talk about peppermint or a field of lavender or a tree like a cypress tree.
Yeah.
Or frankincense. I mean, if it's we always say if it's good enough for baby Jesus, it's good enough for us.
Yeah.
But
we all know it was for Mary. We all know it was for Mary.
Yes.
But different plants have different healing properties. They they help with digestion, and we just love to be able to replace toxic things or chemical-based things that we
Windex,
might have used
everything.
in the past with natural alternatives, and we we use essential oils as a big base to replace those chemicals.
Again, I think this comes back to a fundamental lack of self-awareness of like we've just become adapted to being toxic all the time. I can't use bleach in my house anymore because the second that thing goes on the counter, the second that thing goes in the bathroom, I'm feeling it in my body because I don't have it around anymore.
No.
But that wasn't the case growing up. Like it was all over the place growing up.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And that's just a household cleaner. That's super normal. And it's those things that I would challenge people in, like, don't be deceived by your normal right now.
Wow.
Like, don't just think that that's permissible and that's okay and that everything's hunky-dory and you're still going to work and making money. Like, take your health into your own freaking hands.
To be different, like, do different.
And because no one's going to do it for you. That's the thing. We're moving in the direction of more awareness of people, of like, you know, people just adding strength and adding, you know, education into the school system and different things, which I'm very excited about. But right now, you will not be healthy unless you personally want to.
Yeah, the advertising goes against you. The marketing goes against you. Big Farm, like, there's a strong message out there that's anti holistic health.
So, touching on a couple things with oils, this is such a loaded question, but I want to honor your time. What would you say is one of the most beneficial things that people could take away from using essential oils? If you're talking just to the average American, what oil would you recommend? Why? How does it help?
I'll say mine. You can say yours. My first. There's so many benefits. So if I could just say one, it would be when we go back to the very first things we talked about with stress.
Yeah.
So how God set it up that when we breathe in, our olfactory nerve is sitting right on top of our sinuses, and that big bundle of nerves is directly linked to the limbic system and the amygdala, and one of the deep centers of our feelings and our emotions.
Wow.
And if you look at the anatomy of that and even read about the limbic system and the amygdala, and I won't go real in depth, but it's some of the deep centers and seated emotions, some deep memories. That's what it's linked to. So our ability to smell and breathe and take in an aroma is linked to emotions in a very direct way.
For sure.
So that's why just anatomically, what we breathe in, like something with aromatherapy or specifically essential oils that are good quality, it can have an effect on our emotions, on our mood, stress, emotions.
What a hack that is.
Rage or anger, or just be able to allow us to bring that down or bring us up.
It's good emotions in a bottle.
Totally. Yeah. It's great. That's what makes it great for kids.
I used to think it's hokey. So I mean, if people are saying, oh, okay, no, like
totally.
now they're talking hokey. I used to think that too. But once you research it
and experience it,
look at the anatomy and experience it, it's like, wow, okay, that is really real. I mean, whether we're feeling more depressed and we need to be uplifted, or whether we need to chill out a bit, it can help to balance.
Ourselves. That's
so. What oil, Chet?
Oh, I mean, my favorite is Val. My favorite oil is Valor.
We've got to share the picture.
I think you have it.
We've got to share the picture.
Okay, I guess you're gonna have to put it online.
Yeah, we've got to edit it in.
I just did it for a reaction.
Your
but it was just funny. It was
to that oil is next level, man. I'm impressed.
It was fun, but I mean, frankincense, Valor. I mean, there's so many different.
Yeah, but it's a huge rabbit hole that we don't have time to fully go into. Yeah. But there is real value there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
life changing for a family value.
Tell the story about Cliff coughing up the. Yeah. Tell that story real quick. Do you have time? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll tell it. So because he was okay with it. So there's this fellow who a year ago he was eating. He had a little piece of walnut. He swallowed down the wrong tube.
Was it a piece or was it a whole? I thought
it was a piece.
It was a big piece.
Chunk.
Yeah, it was a chunk, but I don't think it was a whole one. But it was a big piece, and he swallowed it. Went down his lung. He tried coughing. It didn't feel good. He went to his doctor. The doctor said, "It'll probably just dissolve over time." Well, it Didn't really. He had recurring chest infections, and he just gotten over another bout of pneumonia. He could not take a deep breath. So fast forward to recently, we were talking about some other things, but I just gave him this certain essential oil
We
blend.
had like 2 drops left. We were almost out.
It
I'm
was
like,
a little
"There's
bit
2
left. I
drops,
was
see
like,
what
here, just
happens."
take this, put it in your diffuser, and try it. So he started diffusing it for like a day and a half, and then came to church the next day and was telling us about this, that, he started coughing, which is kind of nothing new, but this time it was actually productive. So the essential oil that I gave him was just to help open up the lungs and the bronchioles, but it actually
Right.
worked to help
Like an
his coughing actually be productive. So he starts coughing, coughs out a chunk, sorry for lack of a better word, but coughs out a chunk, looks at it,
There's a
takes
picture
a picture of, it,
chunk.
boom,
Yes.
Yeah.
takes it to his doctor.
It's just this black mass.
Yeah.
almost
I'm
like
gonna
encapsulated.
also include that picture.
So
Yeah.
it's
Just edit that bad
crazy.
boy in.
It's crazy, like some of the power of the essential oils. Sometimes the changes we feel with essential oils are very subtle, and sometimes they're like boom, hugely profound.
Yeah, we've had stories like that in different parts of the body be just as dramatic, whether it's pain after a rotator cuff tear or healing in a knee, that nothing else worked, or there are many stories out there.
Wow.
It's amazing. And people will say, well, I don't have this much money to spend on an oil. And we're like, hey, that's no problem. But every time you go fulfill that prescription for antibiotics, or every time you go pick this up, you're spending it. Somehow, somewhere down the line, you're spending it. So it goes a long way. It's very preventative. It's,
I love that. It's so good. So real quick, let's chat about your book, and then we'll wrap this up.
Oh, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So taking your health in your own hands, give the 3-minute, what is it?
Oh, it's a self-help book. Gives you lots of different stretches, strengthening exercises for trying to get yourself out of pain. Starts out talking about water and some key oils and
Omegas,
some foods to avoid, like sugar and some
Yep.
hydrogenated fats. So
Yep.
it's a little brief nutrition, and then it's a bunch of self-help broken down by chapter, by body part. Like low back,
Okay.
a whole regime of low back stretches, a whole regime of neck things, shoulder things. So each chapter is different.
That's awesome. Okay. So it's very practical,
yeah.
and
It's a manual.
It's a
Yeah.
manual for rehabilitating
Yeah, how to do it at home.
yourself, taking your health in your own hands.
Yeah,
love
as I seeing people with one-on-one and trying to give people a list of exercises to do is just so helpful, to be able to say, hey, take this reference and follow, read this chapter first, and then
That's great.
yeah.
That's great. And where is that available?
It's something I would love to redo and reprint, but you can get the ebook online on Amazon.
Okay.
But yeah,
Perfect.
I would like to do
Or people
reprinting
could contact you personally.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, we've done a couple
Absolutely.
printings, so based on if
Okay.
somebody had a desire, we'd point them in the right direction.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'll make sure your email is Chet Yoder 1980
Mhm.
at gmail.com.
Mhm.
I'll make sure to include that in the description. Ourhealthculture.com.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your website? Is
Yeah.
that with Young Living?
Geared towards oils.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Health, green juicing, yeah. And they can contact us through there as well.
Great.
Ourhealthculture.com. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, you've done a lot of work with me, a lot of work with our staff at Jesus Culture, physical rehabilitation stuff. Not even if you're in a car accident or whatever. It's like, just describe a little bit of what you do and what you can provide. I know you're super busy and pretty tapped, but I want to make sure that if people are in need of some help, they can have you as a resource.
Yeah. I love to be, as we're talking, I love to be preventative.
Yes.
So if I talk to people about health and nutrition, of course, but I actually do a lot of hands-on techniques to just try to establish alignment in the body, alignment in the spine, so all the muscles can work optimally. To try to rebalance the nervous system, so that the body can work in alignment the way it's supposed to. So that does involve a lot of hands-on, practical application with direct physical therapy, adjustments and so forth.
Yep.
So I love to do that, but I also love to empower people. There's a lot they can do on their own. I love to see
Yeah.
people directly one-on-one, but then empour people that, okay, here's what you can do
So not dependent on someone
Yeah,
else
exactly.
or on you. They got the ownership and the knowledge.
Absolutely.
Power.
Yeah, it's rare you've
Yeah.
seen people more than 6 times, I would say.
Yeah, it all depends on the situation.
Totally.
But,
There's some chronic pain issues
yeah.
that come up, but
yeah,
yeah.
trying to empower people to do it themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And they can contact you. What would you say is the best way to contact you?
Email's
Email.
great, but phone's
Phone
great as well. Yeah.
Okay. I'll
I'm
put that
absolutely okay with that.
in the description.
Yeah.
I'll put the website, ourhealthculture.com. And then you have a Facebook group as well.
Chet, yeah,
Yeah.
likes that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of it's a closed Facebook group for supporting people, especially through essential oils.
Great.
But we
Okay.
love to support people that way too.
Great. And then Instagram is?
Mine is
At
at
Chet.
Chet_Yoder.
Yeah. And mine is Sherri, SHERRI.Yoder.
Beautiful. We'll link it up. Guys, this was great. I learned a thing or two.
Me too.
So did I.
Love it. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll have to have you back on again very soon because there's more as usual. Like I said, we need a panel.
Mm-hmm.
You guys should be my panel, my health panel.
Okay.
Would you?
I just wish that all the readers could watch Chet and Curtis work out together. And because that is a sight to see.
It is.
It's
It
very,
is a thing to
very
behold.
powerful.
Hasn't happened enough.
CrossFit Games 2020.
There we go.
And
Love you
how
guys.
am
Thanks so
I
much.
supposed to
Thank
wear
you.
these old clothes when you made me brand new? They didn't fit anymore. Yeah.